What's up, Integral Community, Integral Global? I am David Long, coming here to hang out with you guys today and do some Q&A. I hope y'all are feeling well. I hope y'all are feeling great. If it's too bad, if not too bad, I guess it's too late. All right, I'm just gonna sit here and wait just for a minute to see who shows up. There's somebody. Andrew, what's up, my friend? Hope you're doing well. All right, so we did get some, what's up, Farson? We did get some Q's, and I'm here to hopefully bring some A's. Hope y'all are all doing well. Let's see. I'm feeling good, you know, a little bit nervous. You know how it is in Integral Global. Can tend to get a little bit messy in here. I fully expect some shit talk in the threads today. All right. People are starting to show up. I'm excited to see everybody, and I hope you're excited about these Q's and A's. So I'm gonna start with the questions that I got from people in my group, like Ryan. What's up, Ryan? Hope you're doing well, buddy. Seeing you're here. What's this cool background, Star Trek or Star Wars? Actually, my friend, so this will be the first Q that I'll A. This is my 1K tapestry. When I reached 1K subscribers on YouTube, my buddy Kai, who is an amazing photographer, gave me this print as a gift. You can check out the 1K video that I made. At the end, I'll post links in the description or down in the comments. And yeah, he gave me this print, and I was like, you know what? I need to make this into my new background tapestry after 1K, and I'll probably change it again around 5K or something like that. But yeah, I see the shits talk is starting already. That's wonderful. Yeah, great to see you. So yeah, this tapestry is a picture of mirrors and light, made by my buddy Kai. He's an amazing photographer. Say what's up in the comments, Kai, and let people know what's going on. All right. There's a good amount of people here now. Do you get any commission on the tapestry sales? 50%. Well, not only can you get this in a tapestry at the at my Society 6 page, society6.com/DavidLong, I believe, but there's actually a really awesome t-shirt of this. Imagine how awesome this looks as a t-shirt. That is what's up. And I don't know, man, there's not really a lot of profit to be made on these things, but maybe you and Kai can work out some kind of profit sharing situation, some kind of referral fee or something like that. Appreciate you bringing it up. Okay, so let's get to some of these Q's, shall we? Let's see. Like I said, I'm going to start with some of the Q's that were posted in my group because I love my people the most. They get special privileges with me. Let's see. Actually, yeah, here we go. I'm going to start with a question by Michael Slade because I think it is at the heart of why I decided to do this Q&A here in this group, and I think it really cracks open the question of why, or it really cracks open, you know, the heart of, I think, something that we all need to think about and that we should all consider. And yeah, things have been a little bit of a mess here lately, and in our integral community in general, words. And I think we need to seriously take a good hard look in the mirror. And I think that's at the heart of this question. So instead of continuing to qualify it, I'm just going to read it to you, okay? It seems that in many of the Facebook group discussions within the integral community, there is a lot of history, a lot of which I'm unfamiliar with, where certain people have been emotionally triggered and then hold a grudge, where the grudge holder refuses to actually address philosophical arguments presented in a kind of, well, you've been an asshole to me before, so I'm not going to engage with your arguments kind of way. My question is, given the fact that this is the case, how can we use empathic yet direct communication to open up the space where people feel like they can move past their emotional reactions and be able to stay open, on topic, and actually have some constructive discussion or debate, expanding our collective knowledge in a productive way. I just feel like there are so many intelligent, capable people in this community, and it's such a pity that many of them cannot speak to each other in an intellectually nuanced manner. I imagine all the great discussions that we could be having, which we're not. What a waste of potential. So yeah, for right now, I'm going to go ahead and swipe these comments to the side, so I'm not going to be able to see your comments for a minute. But if you do have questions, type them up, put them down there, and I'll come back and look. Hopefully the trolls don't obnoxiously overflow the comment section to where we can't find anything good. But yeah, that's why I'm swiping to the side for the moment, so I can focus on these important questions without too many distractions. Okay, so I think Michael asks a really important point, and he has a great observation here. There's definitely a lot of history in this group. A lot of people in this community have been in this community for over 10 years. There's a bunch of people who are very active in this group, and some of them are super mature. There's some super intelligent people in our spaces. And there's also a lot of like seemingly like, wow, really kind of actors in our places too. I'm trying to be somewhat gracious. I think he has a very gracious framing here too, you know, where he says there's a lot of intelligent people in our group, and we should be having much more nuanced conversations than this. I think there's a lot of things that we need to do. First of all, you know, I think we need to all have some kind of a deeper respect for integral spaces. We need to really step into our higher selves when we're doing these communications. And okay, let me be the first one to say that I get triggered by the bullshit in these groups. I get annoyed, and yeah, after a certain point, you know, I'm not really bringing my highest self to a lot of this stuff too. I'm just like, is this, you know, integral global, or is this, you know, integral trash fire? You know, it's a real mess. What's going on in these communities? There's a lot of problems, and I think part of why we've gotten to this point is in part because there haven't really been a lot of solutions, and part of it also is that, you know, after, you know, you have these kind of big blow-ups with people, like people get blocked, people don't talk to each other anymore, and yeah, it never goes anywhere. That's the problem, really, is that it never goes anywhere. Nothing ever gets decided. We just go round and round and round and round and round. And then eventually, you know, it's like, well, there's, you know, this person and this person and this person and this person, and they're all in that, you know, other group of integral, and then there's us over here, and we're in our group of integral, and we're the good ones and they're the bad ones, right? But then, so these lines have been drawn. Like, and let's be real, there are lines drawn in the sand around certain topics, and some people are like, the real integralists are on this side of the line, right? And we disagree about what that is. So it seems important that we need to start having real debates and really putting our ideas on the table. And I don't mean just in Facebook groups. I mean, like, we need to take ourselves seriously. We need to take what we're doing here seriously. This isn't just another fun Facebook group. Like, a lot of us who are interested in the integral community are and integral theory and stuff, we're not just we don't just care about this stuff because, you know, it's our like pet spiritual thing and it makes us feel super good about ourselves. We care about these things because they have really enormous potential for the evolution of personal and cultural development in the world, because a lot of us deeply care about the impact these ideas can have. Now, I think that's true on both sides of the aisle around some of these topics. We all really care about an integral vision. If you're passionate about this stuff on either side of one of these arguments, I'm sure you care about how these ideas impact the world. So maybe we can start there. Look, we care about integral. We care about getting it right. So let's start from there, and then have some real, like, on the record, intellectually honest discussions about how we can figure out how to get it right together. You know, there are claims on both sides. There are these repeating patterns that we've gone down on both sides. We need to get these arguments on the record, on the table, and we need to establish which ones stand and which ones don't, and why. We need to get records of this stuff. So a lot of this comes back to a lack of leadership, a lack of standards, a lack of structure. Like, look at these recent Ken Wilber videos that came out. I forget what the YouTube page was. Maybe somebody can know what I'm talking about and post it below. He's talking about showing up and waking up and growing up, of course, you know, and someone asked him about the flaws of integral. And instead of spending any time exploring any of the ways that the several integral projects that he started failed, he basically says something like, you know, I've evolved over the years, and, you know, from Wilbur 1 to Wilbur, you know, 5 or whatever, and I learned this, though I never explicitly said something in a way that got it wrong, actually. So even though I learned it, I was actually never wrong. This is his answer. And then he goes on in that video a little bit further to basically say that part of the problem in our spaces is that a certain percentage of people are bad actors and very vocal, you know. And hey, look at our spaces. You know, it's kind of true. I sort of see why he wouldn't want to get down in this stuff with us and have these arguments. So, okay, so we do need to separate the more serious critics who are going to actually bring real criticisms to the table, and like the people who are in the mob of these groups, you know. But really, we need some kind of systematic way to start to engage. Like, in these videos, Wilbur basically makes a virtue of saying that he never has shown up at any integral conferences. And showing up and cleaning up are Ken Wilber is great at, like, you know, meditating and personal development and upper left stuff and products and selling events and things like upper right stuff. But when you see like his engagement in the culture, you know, and the structures that we've built, like, there's nothing there. It's all individual focused, no collective focus, no leadership, no standards, no structure, no guidance, no intro material. It's left all up to us. Like, he thinks that writing books is good enough. And you know what? I appreciate everything Wilbur's brought to the table. He's built this whole community. Like, we're all here because of his work. He's the first word on the topic, and he brings tons to the table. So, you know, I'm not just saying this stuff to diss on Wilbur, but because he is not going to bring these things, it really is up to us to establish them. Even he thinks it's up to us to establish these things, it seems. So we need to step up, and we need to figure out some kind of way to engage. And that means, you know, that we need leadership, we need standards, we need structure, we need etiquette. And yeah, we need to have formal debates. So that's a very broad strokes answer to this question in a very long way. So, I mean, the reason why this isn't just an easy question to answer, and this is really the main question that I got on here to answer. So I'm trying my best. Please bear with me. I think that there's a lot of problems, and maybe we can start to recognize some of the patterns and address some of these problems when it comes to etiquette. Now, look, let's not act like some basic etiquette stuff doesn't already exist. There are logical fallacies. They exist for a reason. It's because they are a distraction from the point. You know, when a person is strawmanning over and over again, they're not arguing in good faith. When a person is continuing to make it personal over and over again, they're not arguing in good faith. These are major problems. You know, the straw man fallacy and the ad hominem fallacy are some of the worst fallacies, and yet they are all over every single one of these threads. And it's frankly shameful. Like, a lot of the comments in our spaces don't even rise up to the bare minimum of a rational standard of communication, let alone an integral standard of communication. So what's the difference? Let's talk about that a little bit, huh? So I think it's actually around this personal element. You know, for the rationalists, it's like, look, nothing personal, period, right? But I think for us, we can include the personal in certain ways, but we got to be careful how we do it, right? And this is where a lot of us are going wrong, is that we feel like we can include that stuff, but we don't include it skillfully. And so we end up including it in a violent way, which is actually, you know, the stuff that the rational people were trying to avoid. We fall right into those pitfalls. So if you speak about someone personally, if you're going to talk about what a person is doing, you should be talking about their bad behavior that you want to be critical of, because you don't want to be talking about them personally. This isn't a place to insult people. This is a place where we can talk about how we can grow and build together. And so, you know, there are certain things that a person might be doing in their communication that is worth being critical of. Like, hey, you're continually strawmanning me over and over and over again. I've done work to explicitly correct you, and you continue to do it. This is dishonest. See, that is a criticism of their behavior to hopefully get the conversation back on track again. And if you're going to make a claim that somebody does something, like you're saying someone strawman someone, or someone has bad behavior, right? Like this, you better be ready to quote them and give some examples, not just make empty claims, right? Now, this is a lot of stuff that you would think I wouldn't have to necessarily explain, but apparently it does need to be said. There's a couple major problems that happen over and over in our spaces where people are constantly reducing other people to a stage. Now, whenever you see someone doing this, this is a sign that the person doing it doesn't understand spiral dynamics or integral theory, that they're a freshman, and that they're being violent and they need to be corrected, no matter who's doing it for what. Now, it's one thing to say, this idea that you just mentioned sounds like a green idea to me, because basically it's creating, you know, a flatland of value where nothing's better than anything else, or something like that. You know, that's correcting a person's idea. That's not accusing a person of being reduced to a stage, right? It's kind of an important distinction. And there's another major problem around this where people are acting like if you don't agree with them, you're immature. You know, like, oh, if you haven't had the spiritual experience that I've had, then you must just not be up to my level of maturity yet. You know, and there's a bunch of other, you know, mystics or whatever who agree with me. Well, that's not an argument. That's an appeal to popularity. You know, it's given too much emphasis to your own personal experience, and you know, it's this circular reasoning, and you know, like within the tradition kind of thinking, causation correlation fallacies and confirmation bias. And that causation correlation fallacy and confirmation bias is basically the main ingredient in any superstition. That's where this looks like this, and so I associate the two, and you know, this happened, which validates my belief. So I'm going to continue to think that that's true. You know, like instead of trying to falsify your ideas, you go, oh, I believe in you know, synchronicity or whatever, and then just interpreting every time that you see it happening as like, yeah, this is proof of it, instead of being skeptical and trying to think of the ways that it might not work or something like that. So there, you know, there's basically a huge lack of rationality in our community. And integral is supposed to be the synthesis of green and orange. It's diversity, green, with discernment, orange. It's the synthesis. And it's also supposed to be the synthesis of the Eastern and the Western Enlightenment project. So the Eastern Enlightenment project is the deconstruction of the ego. And the Western Enlightenment project is where we come together and try to figure out how the parts relate to the whole with intellectual honesty, right? So we want to do both of those things, realize unity, interconnectedness, deconstruct our ego, and work on this project of trying to figure out what's actually true together. That's what our integral project should be. And a lot of people are lean and heavy towards the personal experience, mystical stuff. And let's be frank, this personal approach to integral is very first stage integral. You know, it's personal. But if we're ever going to move into an integrally informed culture or create the integral age, we need to be building structures together. We need to be working together to refine our ideas over time. So we need to do this personally with integrity in these groups, and we need to do it on a larger scale, systematically, really honestly putting all the ideas on the table and looking at them in a way where we can actually make progress. A very long answer to Michael's question, but his question is so important to this group and to our community in general. I would love to say it's as, that, we could just get leadership and standards and it'd be all good. But a lot of these leaders, they're not stepping up to really, make distinctions or kick anybody out or set standards or make requirements for these spaces. So we really need to hold each other accountable. Maybe we can even come up with some kind of document of shared agreements and hold each other accountable. I mean, if we can't get top-down standards, let's build bottom-up standards and hold each other accountable. And if people are continuing to butt heads over and over and over again, let's encourage them to debate. Let's meet on the integral stage. This integral stage was created to be able to hold some of these debates, and let's do it. Come on, community. Let's step it up. Let's put our ideas on the table. Let's stand by our ideas in public and be like, yep, I think this is the case. I have good arguments for it. I'm taking all takers. Soon enough, I hope to be sort of like throwing down the gauntlet a little bit and inviting open invitation to debate around particular topics. And I hope to be meeting some people on the integral stage myself. And I hope that, the more that we can engage in this way, that we can actually make some progress. Okay, let me say one more thing about these debates before I move on. Through some of our integral governance strategies, I think we can actually come up with a new type of debate that isn't just like, well, I don't know, do you think he won? I think he won, blah, blah, blah. It's not just up for personal opinion, but we can actually map out all the points and keep track of all the counterpoints and see which points stand at the end and which points don't. And we can create maps of these things and make this stuff public and be like, this was the arguments that he made. These were the arguments made against it, and I think we can see over time, okay, this argument is thoroughly defeated. It doesn't stand up. It doesn't have any good positive arguments that actually support it. It gets deconstructed at every turn. These are the arguments against it. Like, we can map all that out, and we should be able to know, and we should be able to have established some of this stuff and move forward. We can know what's established, what's not established, and what will never be established. And we can figure out how to start to engage in some of that, those areas of disagreement where we're still unsure, hopefully in a way where we can make some progress. We need to figure this stuff out. We need to be able to find answers and make progress together, because, even that's why I'm saying it's like that we can use these integral governance methods, because to some extent, these governance methods are designed to get answers and actionable solutions, or at least, come to some kind of conclusion at the end of the day. So I think we can apply some of that stuff. All right, I don't know if I fully answered his question. I know that felt really long to me, but it also felt like I was trying to rapid fire. So etiquette, structure, leadership, us taking responsibility as leaders and trying to get stuff back on track. Maybe if we see some people who are arguing with each other and not getting anywhere, maybe we can figure out, some of us leaders need to step up and take a mediator role. If two people are butting heads, be an integralist, show that you can help, we should all be trying to demonstrate and bring our highest selves to these things. It shouldn't be descending into this name calling and straw manning and stuff. It's shameful. And I mean, I think we are probably all embarrassed, right? To bring people into this kind of a space and show, and this is what's going on. Integralists claim to be, the smartest people in the world, the best at processing tensions and all this kind of stuff. And we can do better. I believe it. I believe we can do better. I agree with Michael. This is a waste of our potential. We can do better. All of us. Including me. I include myself. I can do better. And, I'm sorry. I will apologize right here and now. I'm sorry for the times that I didn't bring my highest self. If you feel like I've, I can be very blunt and to the point. And, if it seems like you're being really dishonest with me, I'm going to probably be a bit rude to you for sure, So I'm trying to create an environment where we can have more respect for each other. And, you know, I'm willing to own my shit too. You know, like I am not the perfect example of how to have a conversation about some of this stuff. We all need to grow up a little bit and do better, including myself. And if we're going to build the integral age together, we really need to do better. We really need to get beyond our own personal preferences, and we need to be able to work across the aisle too, with intellectual honesty, to establish what we can actually know. Because if we try to build the religion of tomorrow and an integral future, and it's basically just Buddhism, like we're basically doing that first tier stuff of thinking that we have the one true way and trying to impose it on other people. We really need to be able to establish anything that we say. We need to be able to back it up. Like integral should be bulletproof. We need to be bulletproof. If we're going to take this stuff to the next level, if we're going to get the respect of the world, we need to be bulletproof. I'm just checking over my notes to see if there's, I mean, I think yeah. So I made notes for that question because I thought it was important, and I think I covered a lot of it. But yeah, I hope that's helpful to some of y'all. We can all do better. Okay, looks like, let's see what we got. I'm just looking through the comments now. Yeah, okay, cool. I'm gonna keep going. Next question. John Morton asks, my ongoing problem, where's the data? Any of it, all of it. Where is the published research correlating life stages and entering, exiting phases with certain brain states? Where are the psychographs and the infographics with citations that link and create data-driven case for specific V-memes in given developmental stages? Where do I go if I want to see the assessment of each common developmental thread come from? If this research hasn't been done, why not? If it has, why is it so difficult to find and navigate? Seems like we need an integral journal, not integral world or integral review, or, you know, too many essays. We need a database, a repository that allows for us to explore the findings or link exiting research into the integral framework. Yeah, I agree. We need more structures. We need to take it to the next level. We need to really get beyond this personal stuff and take it to the next level of starting to build structures together. You know, they say on average it takes 5 years to move through a stage of development. Integral has been around for what, like 30 years? Can we start to build some structures together already? Can we start to get past just us as individuals and start building together, start refining together, start making some kind of a system for us all to be able to participate in, to gather our collective wisdom together and refine? We have developed these integral governance strategies. We have developed things like collab and holacracy and all of these kinds of awesome structures. We need to, there's some of you guys out there who are super smart at this technical stuff, who have money to back these things up. We need to assert ourselves and build these things for the community, for the greater good of what we got going. Like if other people care about these things, you know, let's make fundraisers for them. Let's get these projects going. You know, we need to create new structures and new systems. It can't just be Ken Wilber and these integral life people who do this stuff. We need to keep it up. I'm going to read what Ryan says. He says, totally agree, man. As a mediator, maybe we can develop a trained army of integral mediators in our new communication group. Yeah, I love that idea. You know, like, Ryan, take up this idea. Start a new communication group. Add me as a member. Let's talk together about a strategy for mediating integral disputes and taking this stuff to the next level. I really like that idea. You know, let's do it. You know, you guys, we are integralists. We are some of the smartest people on the planet. You know, I don't say that in an egoic way. I say that in like a don't sell yourself short kind of way. Like, you are the leader of the future. Take responsibility. Step up. Be awesome. If you see a problem, solve it. Find other people who care about your problem. Come up with a solution. Build a structure. Get it going. Let's do it. Add me to the group. I'm into it. Yeah, here we go. Farsums, add me as a member. He says, awesome, let's do it. There you go. Integral mediators. We're on it, you know? Let's build it. That's what's up. Let's see. I'm going to go back to the group now. Michael Erdman has a couple of questions in my group about integral politics and integral science and stuff like this. And um, are there compelling images for each of the quadrants in tetraevolution? Here's an example of Trump's political perspective in each quadrant. Yeah, I mean, we got some of that sort of stuff, right? I mean, I'm not the big politics guy. Honestly, I'm more into transformation. I've kind of lost faith in some of the old systems, and I don't really have a lot of faith in translation into the old systems. I mean, I think we have to do that, but I think we need to be careful not to kid ourselves. Um, okay, here's something to think about, and I haven't heard a good answer back from this. I hope you don't mind me shifting your question a little bit here, Michael. But let me ask you guys in the community. I'm interested in the idea of transformation into a new system, something like collective individualism, which is a transformative synthesis of the agentic and communal themes, a whole new system, an integral system from the ground up. Creating a healthy version of the spiral for the new world and transcending and including the systems of the past, right? That's a huge project, lifelong project. We're going to be doing it for the rest of my life at least. And yeah, but then there's also working within the current system. There's these ideas about conscious capitalism and conscious consumerism and integral business. But then there's this problem like, well, do we think that if I start an integral business, that's the solution to capitalism? Like that fixed the problem? Or do we realize that we still have to do something better? That that the system is inherently problematic. Like you can't just get a good person into office and now it's all good. No. And so my concern, like, okay, for example, like someone like Trump, we can all look at Trump and be like, okay, the system's broken. This is a real problem. This stuff doesn't work anymore. It's a great example of how the system is broken and corrupt and it doesn't work. Now, if you get Bernie Sanders in there, now we're maybe getting universal health care, and everybody gets comfortable again, and they all go back to work like a bunch of drones, making $12 or $15 an hour as minimum wage as opposed to 10 or something like that. Slightly more comfortable, but it's really just rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic, and it's still going down. We're still just we're still living in a totally unsustainable way, and depleting resources, and we're still supporting companies that have slave labor and sweatshops and stuff like that in other countries, So I'm concerned people are just going to fall back asleep if we get like Bernie in there, Trump is good for revolution in a sense. So my question to y'all is, does healthy translation eventually inevitably lead to transformation? Or does the idea of healthy transformation block transformation because people think that the translation is the solution? Like, oh, I don't have to fix capitalism now because I got an integral business, or I'm a conscious consumer. Interested in your thoughts on that. How about I ask y'all a question? I asked Don Beck this. I don't think I got an answer from him, but yeah, I would love to know. Does transformation does healthy translation inevitably lead to transformation, or does healthy translation sometimes block transformation? Love to know what you think about that. Okay, let's see what another question is. I'm going to come back to the integral global group and check out the post that I made there and see what we got in terms of questions. Man, these integral woodworking things that Corey has been making are pretty cool, right? Oh, there's a David Long checkmate meme. That's cute. Let's see. Yeah, meme me. I like it. These people trying to hurt me by memeing me. Yeah, talk a bunch of stuff about me and try to make me look bad. I think it's going to backfire on you. Okay. Let's see. Kurt Fury. Here's a great question. Does a purely cognitive understanding of integral theory make somebody integral? Now, what were we saying at the beginning of this talk about reducing a person to a stage of development? Ideas are at stages of development, right? Not people. So, actually, what I've noticed generally happens is that the cognitive line runs ahead, right? So, I mean, even think about like a lot of us are in this group are probably at least in green, right? So, imagine, do you remember back when you were transitioning from like a blue or an orange into a more green space? Do you remember what that was like? It's a little bit of that circular reasoning, actually. If you all are familiar with your integral theory and you know about the Wilbur-Combs matrix, you know that we can only ever interpret any experience in the light of the worldview that we understand, right? So what happens is that the cognitive line runs ahead and it starts to grasp these ideas at higher stages, right? It's like, oh, that makes sense to me. And then what happens is eventually, somehow, we will see that idea play out in the world and we'll see an example of it, either in our life or in someone else's life or in some situation. And then we'll understand it and we'll be like, oh, yeah, I see that now. That is clearly the thing. You know what I mean? Like, let's say enlightenment or unity. You know what I mean? Like, there was probably a time when you were like, yeah, we're all connected. We're all interconnected. We're all one. We're all part of the universe. We're all stardust. We're all part of the ecosystem. The universe has a fractal nature or something. Let's say I'm thinking like late orange or something. Being like, yeah, actually these hippies are kind of right. Like we are all connected. That's why they call it the universe, right? The parts relate to the whole in this interconnected system, this fractal web of life, right? So you start to see it. You start to realize it. Maybe you even have some profound experience in a meditative state or on some psychedelic drug or something like that. And then you experience it, right? You're like, whoa, we are all one. We're all connected. I am the universe looking back at itself. I am, the wave of a drop in the wave of the ocean, a ripple on the surface of the pond of infinity. Whatever kind of poetry you like, you know what I mean? And you're like, wow, right? And then, just because you understood it, just because you had an amazing experience about it, then it can take some years, if you're working on it, to really live like that's the case, like you know that that's true, living in that realization. So a lot of us understand some integral insights, grasp a little bit of integral theory, but how many of us are truly living it out? Truly every day taking into account all quadrants, all levels, all lines, all states, all types, truly getting beyond our own perspective and our own personal stuff to be able to meet people where they are and love them and help them with their personal development. How many of us are really practicing it? Now, in terms of what makes someone really integral, like I said, I don't know if I want to reduce anybody to a stage because we all transcend and include all the stages. A lot of times, some of the things we do and say and think don't live up to an integral standard. It's true, and we should take a good hard look at some of that stuff, including me. I don't disclude myself from hardly any of these criticisms. I'm in it with you. I'm not trying to act above it or anything like that. But yeah, we need to really, really ask ourselves if we're living up to this integral standard, and do our best and take it on as a practice. It should be a spiritual practice. We should have an integral life practice. It takes practice. So yeah, to me, that's more of what it means to be integral. It's like, are your actions there? Do your morals align with integral? Does the way you live your life, demonstrate by example integral standards, integral practices? What makes a political candidate integral? Seems like no one agrees on this one. That's a Ryan question. What makes a political candidate integral? I would say if you're a political candidate, you're doing some kind of translation, and I would keep a lookout for integral communication and integral distinctions. There's a great video about integral marketing by Barrett Brown, and I'll post it in the links in the description below, the comments in the description. And he talks about how to sell green up and down the spiral. And when I say green in this context, I mean like sustainability, right? So he talks about how to communicate it to purple, how to communicate it to children, how to communicate it to tribal people, and all the way up the spiral. And he talks about hot buttons and cold buttons. Like, what are the things that you should do when you're talking to this group? What are the things that they value? What are the things that turn them on and that, like, you appeal to that and they're like, okay. And then what are the things that are going to, like, set them off and, like, make them not trust you and not like you and not like what you're saying, right? So you have that in terms of translation all the way up the spiral until you get into second-tier communication, which is something like using language in a buckshot type of way, where you're using certain words to resonate up the spiral, and your communication is like, let me see if I can give an example off the top of the head, like, you know, my fellow citizens. I don't know if I could do the Barrett voice. I'm not going to try. Like, you know, my fellow citizens, you know, we need to take care of families and communities. That's, you know, blue. And, you know, we need to do things that are going to help, you know, American businesses thrive and, you know, innovation and things like this. And we need to take care of the environment. And, like, so, you know, a sustainable, profitable thing that's in line with our values. So, I mean, like, when you can recognize an integral speech, it's something that's going to have words that resonate across multiple stages of development, to where you're speaking in a way where this word resonates with this audience and this word resonates with that audience, and you're really being able to engage a lot of people and getting them involved in caring about the things that, you know, you're trying to accomplish. That's some, at least, integral communication. And on the other side of that, in terms of the content, I would want to see things that aren't too far to either extreme of, like, the collective or individual side of things. You know, something that's kind of synthesizing and creating that middle way between the two opposites of red and blue. So apparently I do have somewhat of an answer for that. Okay. What are some practices for exposing and integrating shadow at second tier? That's a Daniel Fox question. Dang, that's a good question. What are some practices for exposing and integrating shadow at second tier? Well, let me say this. Before, when I was saying that people who say, oh, you're orange or you're green, or, you know, like, whatever ideas you see a person attacking a lot, that's a good sign that they have some shadow at that stage. You know, there is a lot of shadow around orange in our community, orange and green. You know, I mean, which makes sense because green is the stage we just came out of, and yeah, a lot of people swing to the mystical side, and so they demonize and strawman and reject science. But, you know, trans-rationality as integralists integrating diversity with discernment, we should all really be appreciating science and rationality and all this stuff. And when someone says, hey, I have a scientific criticism of a scientific idea that, you know, Ken Wilber brought up, like, Ken Wilber denies the second law of thermodynamics, the proper response is not to call that person orange, because it's a valid criticism. It's a reasonable thing to be critical of. And calling someone names and pretending to be higher than them is not an answer. And if you're really higher and you're really more mature, then you don't need to put another person down to feel higher. What you'll do is you'll demonstrate that you're higher, demonstrate that you have authority by explaining that you know what you're talking about and you have good reasons and evidence to hold the view that you have. Makes sense, right? So whenever you see someone calling Frank Visser orange, know that that person has an integral know that that person has an orange shadow. Because regardless of whether Frank Visser is orange or not, those are valid criticisms. You know, like, to reduce them as orange and, oh, they just don't understand, is not helping anyone to understand. So how can we expose and integrate shadow at second tier? Well, let's keep an eye out for these people who are calling names And if you see yourself trying to reduce another person to a stage, you should take a good hard look in the mirror. You probably are throwing the baby out with the dirty bathwater, and you probably have some stuff to learn and some values to integrate from that stage. So hopefully I'm shining some light on you right now and exposing you and hopefully getting you to integrate that stuff. Because if you can't take on traditional mythology and be like, you know what? I resonate with being Christian. I resonate with being a Muslim. I resonate with being a Buddhist. I feel like I am a Christian, a Muslim, a Buddhist, whatever. Like, I'm dedicated to God. I love God. My life is a vehicle for God. And I mean, that's great poetry. I mean, sure, it's all bogged down in some traditional nonsense that we need to be able to make some clear judgments about and be able to qualify the stuff correctly. Our poetry needs to cash out in accord with truth and rationality, but we need to be able to integrate in blue and own it and love it. We need to be able to integrate in orange and own it and love it. We need to be able to integrate in green and own it and love it. And if we're projecting our shadow onto other people in the community and attacking orange, green, and blue in other people, you have shadow issues, my friend, around that stuff, and you need to take a good hard look and spend some time there. That's a good indicator. And if you're in second tier and you're a first stage integralist, this is what you need to be working on. This is what first stage, yellow or teal integralists need to be doing. They need to be going back down the spiral and dealing with their shadow and learning to love these parts of themselves so that way they can be skillful practitioners with other people at these stages. If you can't lovingly communicate to these people and talk to them in their own language to explain to them how your ideas are better and lead them down the trail from one stage of development into the next one, then you don't understand it well enough. If you got to put other people down and strawman their ideas, you don't understand it. You have work to do. It's you. Okay, I'm going to come back and check to see what's going on. All right. I'm not seeing really... What's up, Kai? How you doing, brother? I love you, man. Address the critical comments. Yeah, Farsim, you're a leader of the future, brother. Pavel, what critical comments are you thinking of, man? Let me know. I'll try to address them. What does second tier interpersonal line of intelligence look like? How would a truly integral person communicate with others? And are there any developmental researchers on this subject? That's a Ryan question. Yeah, I've been trying to address that in this talk, so hopefully there's the beginning of some answers to how we're going to do this. And, you were on here. We're going to start this group together about integral mediators, and we're going to start to figure this stuff out. Yeah, I think part of it is listening and engaging with the points. That's first and foremost. Being able to have the conversation be at least at a rational standard, right? So, I mean, here's a good practice, right? You're going to write a comment in response to someone. Okay, hey, quote them if you're going to say that they said something. Don't put words in their mouth. You quote them. That's a good start. Write out your criticisms. Deal with their points. So the rational bit is laid out. Okay, now go back up to the top where your criticism starts. Boom, boom, boom. Enter down. You're going to start from the beginning. And now, say something nice. Tell them how you relate to them, how you value them. If we're going to go personal, let's make it a practice of starting from the things that we have in common. We like I did at the beginning of this talk. Look, we all care about the integral community. We all care about birthing the integral age together. We all care about the health of integral and integral standards. Like that was how I started. Maybe you can do something like that on a more personal level with the person that you're talking to. It's like, look, I can see that you value this and this. I really like that you said this. I totally agree with you about this. And don't say but. Now let me address your points or your questions or whatever it is. So let's try and start by, if we're going to go personal, let's start in good faith. Let's start with being nice to each other. I need to do better at this too. It's a practice that I do in more obvious good faith debates. When it's a bit of a shit show, it pulls down my standard as well. I'm not fully up on that when a bunch of people are being jerks to me anyways. I end up not respecting them enough to put in the time to do this. So that's a bad thing too. We need to break the cycle of suffering. If someone else is treating us like shit, we cannot stoop to that level. We need to maintain the high ground and pull them up. And if anything, try to love through it. It's something that we got to practice. And I'll hold myself in this too. It's something that we all got to practice. We got to bring up the standards. Yeah, I would offer that up as a way that we can do better. Let's go ahead and make it personal, but let's do it skillfully with love. Okay. Joe Corbett asks, is demanding a purely materialistic explanation of evolution from a spiritual narrative of evolution an impossible and contradictory demand? Okay. Is demanding a purely materialist explanation of evolution? Okay, so right in there's some tricky word stuff, okay? Because this word materialist is not something very many integralists want to own, Most of us, because one of the main things that's happening in our community is that cosmological materialists are reduced to empirical reductionists, as if you only believe in it, or you only believe in what you can measure, right? And no integralist is an upper right quadrant reductionist. We all include all four quadrants. That's why we're here in integral spaces. That's why we're integralists. So there's some word trouble there. Like a lot of us consider ourselves to be emergentists. So yeah, and a parallel that I could point to that I see as kind of a fallacy, right? Let me compare it to what I see Christians doing, right? Usually people have a hard time seeing beyond the stage that they're at, right? So Christians will usually reduce rational atheists who have good reasons and evidence not to believe in God at orange to red. Impulsive, egoic, narcissistic children who are, they're rebellious. They're unwilling to admit the truth of God, right? So there's kind of a difference. But those people do exist, but a rational atheist is not one of those people, right? So it's like, here you have green, and the way that they strawman and dismiss science, it's like, oh, they're reductionists. They just reduce reality to what they can grasp in the palm of their hand. You know what I mean? And yeah, those people exist. But if you're a realist or a materialist at an integral stage, that's obviously not you. So that's the difference between an empirical reductionist materialist and an integral emergentist. Okay? So is demanding a purely materialist explanation of evolution? I mean, what do we mean by materialist? Like a purely realist explanation of evolution, we'll say maybe, from a spiritual narrative of evolution, an impossible and contradictory demand. So if by spiritual he means like a religious, dogmatic kind of interpretation of spiritual, they're contradictory. But if by spiritual in this regard he means like a poetic way of talking about interiorities, like if he's asking, can we come up with a story of evolution that includes the interior aspects of evolution? Is this an impossible and contradictory demand? I would say no. I would say we're right to want this. We should want this. Every integralist is going to be coming from this perspective, whether they're coming from a more idealistic cosmology or a more realist or emergentist cosmology. We're all going to want this. It's just a matter of how the details cash out. And the question there is, are we working backwards from our pre-held assumptions and looking for things to validate what we already think? Or are we trying to reasonably build our ideas from the ground up based on what we can actually establish as good and true? And obviously, I would advocate for the latter. All right, I'm gonna check back on the comments. I love y'all. I hope y'all are having a good time watching this. I hope that this is fun for you. I'm gonna be done here pretty soon because we're coming to the bottom of the questions. Okay, well, Michael posted his question here too. Yeah, okay, you know what? This is getting close to the end. And yeah, I hope this was helpful. I hope this was productive. Last chance for some questions. I'll wait, ask your questions, and I'm excited to see if you got any. What's up, Michael? All right, you know what? I'm going to give a couple more minutes for some questions, and then I'm going to close it down. What's up, Daniel Fox? You're the man. I appreciate you. I answered your question. Well, let's see. I'm replying to Jason. Did you design it yourself or you had help? I'm just now looking at some of these comments on the thread. I guess it's easier to look at it on the page. Practicing for exposing and integrating China in the second tier. No. So I also had a talk with Jason from Fresh Mind back in the day where I was kind of critical of him from an integral perspective of his Fresh Mind practice. I'll post that in the comments under his thing as well, and you can tell me what you guys think about that from an integral perspective. I've been meaning to finish it up and edit it and post it, but I'm actually currently sitting on a pile of unedited videos that I'm slowly going through. I don't know if you guys are familiar with my video content or not. I'll put there's going to be links. But yeah, I try to heavily edit my content to condense it down to save y'all time. And so that's why it takes me so long. Although this video right here, the one that we're currently watching, I'm going to upload this video without any edits on my YouTube. So you can check it there. Looks like we got some questions rolling in. You guys are the best. Why are you not a red-orange materialist as many may think? Okay. Well, I totally integrate a lot of the good things of blue, higher purpose and meaning and value. Like, for example, it says, I am in front of my name, David Long, right? So I am seeing myself in this non-dual way, not just as, my ego living out my life for myself. I see myself as a realized being that knows that it's the universe in flux, and I've given my life over towards what I can do with this body mind for the greater good, and that's why I'm here talking to y'all today, because I've fully dedicated my life towards helping to realize the integral age and an integral vision. That's what I'm all about, no matter what. So I'm living for a higher purpose at green, or I'm at blue. And I'm integrating diversity at green. I understand the relative nature of all language, and one of my favorite teachers is Joseph Campbell, so I appreciate the poetry and the value across all traditions. And I'm integral because I like to integrate that diversity with discernment, knowing when and where it's appropriate to use what symbol sets with what people. And yeah, if you really dig into my content and you really understand where my head and heart is at and what I'm trying to do, it's clearly coming from an integral perspective. We might have disagreements over cosmological idealism or cosmological, emergentism, but that doesn't make one integral or not. There are integralists who have both ideas, and I think it's just more the case that one set of ideas is more in line with the skillful application of integral methodological pluralism than the other idea. But of course, you can be wrong about a topic or an idea and still be at a stage of development, or generally hanging out at that stage of development. You know what I'm saying? Just because you're an integralist doesn't mean you're getting everything right. You can be including all quadrants, all levels, all lines, all states, and all types, and be wrong about some important ideas. Including all the factors doesn't mean that you're getting everything right within all those factors, right? There's a big distinction. Like, at a certain point, integral can kind of become like a categorization game, you know what I mean? And the devil's in the details. So it's great that we have a big picture view and that we're taking into account all these perspectives, but integrating a bunch of things doesn't get you truth. Man, my mouth is dry. Much love, Alyosha. Good question. Do you think you can be an integralist without being an emergentist? I just answered that question, my brother. So there you go. Yeah, you can. You're just not really. It's just that your ideas really aren't going to be that in line with the integral methodological pluralism. You can be an integralist and ascribe to a theory that is wrong. It's totally possible, and this is why, it's not like, yeah, I answered your question. Excited to see it. Just got here. Here's another cue. What's with the asshole trolling in integral groups right now / always? Yeah, there are some people in these groups who really bring down the overall quality. I don't know. I think that Jamie Wheel had some good points about how certain types of people can be attracted to our community. And I think people come into our community with a certain kind of passion, and they've been told some stuff by Wilbur. They think it's a certain kind of way, and yeah, I don't know, man. It's a tough one. And I think, I've been, yeah, Shadow. I think also when you're really vocal and you're critical, and especially when you get into these groups and you're philosophizing with a hammer and you're like, that's a fallacy, this is a this, like the more you get in there and chop stuff down, and like the more, like the more you philosophize with the hammer, the more people don't like you. Look at Socrates, right? To some extent, he's a philosophical hero, but a lot of people think he's an asshole. He went around to people, he was a gadfly, he bothered people, and he shook things up. And he changed the world forever. If people aren't pissed at you and don't like you, you probably aren't doing a lot. But yeah, so it's bound to happen. But we really, as a community, like I said, we need to have these moderators. We need to have responsibility. We need to call out bad behavior. If people are just calling people names and stuff like that, I mean, this is not the kind of stuff any of us want associated with our community, regardless of whether you're an idealist or an emergentist. I think we can all agree on what counts as good etiquette and what counts as, real open-hearted, good faith conversation, and what's just name calling. Yeah, okay. Is it Ari? Is that how you say it? Ari, how you doing? Thank you for your question. You spoke earlier about rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic, still sinking. What do you think the integral approach to systemic revolution is? I'm so glad you asked me this question. I'm actually currently writing a book about it called The Long View, a handbook to an integral revolution, small r, big E, right? So it's going to be a combination of both translation on the short term and transformation on the long term. In terms of the revolution itself, it has to go through stages of development, and there's different projects and values at each stage. One of the major problems that we find is, like, look at something like the Zeitgeist movement, right? They're really, like, Peter Joseph is great, and he's really good at being like, here's the problem with the world and how we run things. Here's capitalism. It's getting a lot of things wrong. It's a real problem. It's a value systems disorder, all this stuff, right? He's really good at criticizing the old way, and he's really good at talking about how we could do it better. But it's like an underpants gnome from South Park type of situation where it's like, step 1, collect underpants. Step 3, profit. And it's like there's no plan in the middle to transition us from one to the other. So that's what I'm trying to do. And what happens with a lot of people is that what happens with a lot of these conversations is around this revolutionary stuff is that people tend to think of the revolution in a flat way where they're like, oh, it's all about starting community centers. Oh, it's all about having a new commune together and starting the new community. Oh, it's all about having these revolutionary things within the marketplace. Like, there are, like I said, there are different projects and aspects of a revolutionary movement, and my hope is that when I put out my book, we can talk about what we might do at stage 2 and how we can come up with ideas to do that better, and what stage 5 of a revolutionary movement might be like, and what some projects and pitfalls might be there. And we can think of it in a much more unfolding, dynamic kind of way, like, well, in my town, the revolution is only really manifesting at this level, whereas in this town, they got this going, and it's happening up here, right? So it's kind of not a full answer. You're going to have to wait for the book and some of the other stuff that I have going. If you're interested in that further, I would encourage you to join the Integral Emergentist Revolutionary Movement group. And there's a video that's pinned to the top of that group that you can check for a much longer answer to this question. And that would be where you can get involved and get plugged in to make sure that you are going to know when this stuff comes out. And yeah. What is happening with your evolved integral maps work? Thanks for asking that, Jason. Like I said, I'm very overwhelmed with a lot of things at the moment. There are upgrades for a Davidian integral map 2.0. Okay, first let me go back and explain. About a year ago, a little over a year ago, I came out with the Davidian integral map, which was the integral map from a more emergentist perspective, you know, where we don't stack these like mystical state stages on top of the spiral, and we try to correct some of the names of the states and some of the issues around some of this stuff. And yeah, on that map there is, yeah, and so I made a video about it, and I offered up the map to the community. If you go to iam/davidlong.com/Davidian, AQAL, DAVIDIAN, AQAL, you can download the big full-sized poster-sized map for yourself. Again, I'll put links to this stuff in the description, in the comments. And so on that map, in the quadrants, there's like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, because on the other side of deconstructing tetra arising, we realized that in terms of epistemology, the interior quadrants are primary, and then you have to go through sort of the other quadrants to get access to the exterior quadrants, right? But when it comes to cosmology, from an emergentist perspective, the exterior quadrants are primacy, and they are primary, and they give rise to interior quadrants. So after I put out this map, I came up with this idea of the nested quadratic holons, and I got some videos about that. I need to make like a full video about that, but I kind of unpack it in a few videos. And basically, it's expanded further, where there's not just one for cosmology and epistemology. There's one for accuracy and development. And so it's not just, tetra arising, all quadrants all the time. I mean, sure, tetra arising in sentient holons, in other words, in living beings, you have all 4 quadrants happening at once. That's true, that's useful. But depending on the category or the topic that we're talking about, some quadrants have primacy, some quadrants deserve special, the quadrants relate to each other differently in different quadrants. And so this is going to be something that's going to be a part of the next integral map, the Davidian integral map 2.0 when it comes out. I just have been behind. I'm hoping that it'll come out this October. That's what I'm shooting for. That'll be the 2-year anniversary from the last map. And if you want to engage in the evolution of the map, you can go to the Reddit page, update AQAL, and post your suggestions there, and they will be, that we can discuss them and criticize them. Eventually, I would like to come up with an official process where it's not like I decide, but that there's like a community of the adequate who work on refining the map together, and that's something that we as the integral community can take control of over time. Basically, a lot of what we need to do is stop putting everything on Ken Wilber, stop thinking Wilber is the orthodox of integral, and we need to set up systems and practices for how we integralists can engage together and take this project further into the future. Thank you, Ari. Yeah, and also, everybody here, if you are liking these talks and you are integrally informed and you value this mature, rational communication, I would also encourage you to join my I Am David Long Friends and Fans group and check out more of my videos. If you appreciate the work that I'm doing in our community, and I would really appreciate your support on Patreon. I do all this stuff for free, and I continue to do it and bring value to our community because I care so much about what we got going. But and I'm going to keep doing that. But I could certainly use the support. So yeah, if you can afford it, yeah, throw me some bucks. All right, I think we've reached the bottom of our questions. I'm going to do a YouTube outro for this thing because I'm going to post this on YouTube. So thanks everyone for watching. Thanks to all my Patreons for your support. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to to my YouTube page. Make sure you share this video with your friends. I think that's all the things. Like, share, subscribe, support me on Patreon. Yeah, that's it. All right, y'all. Thanks so much for hanging out. Much love. My integral community. Y'all are the best. I got nothing but love for all of you. Take it easy. We'll be talking again soon. Peace.